So it's very important that we honor and remember these women. They keep going missing and murdered every day.
Tonight, with so many unsolved cases, families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls look to each other for support at events across Canada.
It's So the songs, so it's flipped around, but it's the songs of the people of the beautiful river.
How this year's Polaris Prize winner brings the voices of his ancestors into contemporary recordings.
Exciting, terrifying, but also empowering at the same time.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. You get there, you're scared, but you're like, no, I got this.
Yeah.
And fashion forward, designs from a Haida Gwaii artist on the catwalk. Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. The National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls wrapped up hearings in Winnipeg this week. Today they heard from 6 experts and knowledge keepers who spoke of direct links between the child welfare system and missing and murdered women. Brittany Hobson was there.
After more than a year of hearings across Canada and 5 days of testimony on the child welfare system in Winnipeg, the National Inquiry is leaving with a grim reality.
What we'll find is that there is an overrepresentation of women who were in care or children who were in care at the time of their deaths being amongst murdered and missing Indigenous women.
Cindy Blackstock told commissioners this on Wednesday, but it's something they've already heard coast to coast.
None of these statistics are new per se.
Experts spoke about the overrepresentation of Indigenous kids in care and the overwhelming number of girls who are victims of sexualized violence. The inquiry says this indicates a direct link between the child welfare system and the missing and murdered.
Well, of course they're not safe. Of course they're more vulnerable to violence and exploitation. It's a straight line.
Part of this is because children lack the proper cultural supports while in the system.
You know, they're taken at young ages, and the moment they're apprehended, they lose everything they know, and they're catapulted into grief and loss, and there's no one there to support them or help them recover.
Cora Morgan is Manitoba's First Nations family advocate. She argued Indigenous communities need to be the ones leading the child welfare system.
We also need our elders and grandmothers to be defining what culturally appropriate is.
One of the other major issues brought up this week was lack of supports for kids aging out of care and how this puts them at risk.
Violence against Indigenous girls in particular in care, that leaves them vulnerable. When they age out of the system, there are no supports for them, and they're left basically on the street with their belongings in a green garbage bag.
Commissioners will be in Newfoundland beginning October 15th for the last hearings before submitting their final report next year. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thursday marked the 13th year for Sisters in Spirit. There were vigils for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls across Canada. We start in Ottawa. Here's Annette Francis.
This year's memorial began with a small feast on Victoria Island. The vigil started in 2006 in honor of Bridget Tolley's mother, Gladys, who was killed in 2001 in Maniwaki, Quebec.
Well, tonight it's special for me because last week I testified at the Quebec Commission, and I was able to testify in honor of my mother, and it was the first time Quebec acknowledged my mother's death in 17 years, so it was a very special day for me, but it's a special day for me every day because I do this work every day, and I do it because, you know, it's in the heart. And it's hard to see family members going through what we went through decades ago.
At that time, there were 500 missing or murdered Indigenous women and girls. That number has doubled. Tolley says that's why every October 4th is so important.
This is a day we get to honor and remember our women. These women have been forgotten about and, you know, left behind. And so it's very important that we honor and remember these women. They keep going missing and murdered every day, and it's super hard.
After the family gathering, they meet on Parliament Hill, where they're joined by over 100 supporters. Lori Ojik's daughter Maisie and friend Shannon from Kitigan-Zibi have been missing for 10 years. She says it's never easy to come here. Every day there's an empty hole for all these families.
You know, there's that big building in the back there, but, you know, no help to us really, in a sense. Because all we have is each other and our families to support each other here. Because families are my biggest strength as well. Because we share that. It's not a, you don't want to share something like that, but we know what each other is going through, and you know, we feel the love.
Ottawa University student Megan Patassi says she's here in solidarity for the stolen sisters across the country.
Because it's something that has really been thrown under the rug in politics, and we're not paying close enough attention to it. Indigenous women are 5 times more likely to be have violence committed against them than non-Indigenous women, and that's something that needs to be a priority in our politics.
Following the speeches and final song, the evening ended with a hoop dance. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls marked a gathering in Winnipeg as well. Their goal was to lift their spirits as part of their healing journey. APTN's Daryl Stranger brings us this.
A celebration of spirit, honoring Manitoba's missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, families, and survivors, is an all-day event. It brings public awareness to Manitoba's missing and murdered. Through events like this, families are shown they are not alone, and people will continue to fight for change and action. Event organizer L.A. McIver organized events throughout the day, and she explained why vigils and events like it are important to the families involved.
They didn't want to be left in trauma. They didn't want to deal with trauma anymore. They want to be lifted up. They want to heal. They want to move forward in healing.
One of the events today included the first annual 1 and 5K family walk called Souls on Fire. Angela LaValle founded Souls on Fire with the purpose of bringing awareness to healing from all forms of violence and remembering loved ones who were taken.
I just thought about how it would be a beautiful thing to have an Indigenous-led marathon for our women and girls, and to celebrate life, and also to keep in mind, in our mind and our spirits, you know, the injustices that live out there.
Commissioners for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls are here in support of the families.
We have to always remember the women, the girls, the trans and two-spirited, their families, their children, their ancestors, and those that are going to come. And we can't ever forget, and more people have to know.
A day filled with remembrance and awareness ended with a candlelight vigil. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We always want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. Well, it's time for us to take a short break, but first, here's your weather forecast for tomorrow. Starting off in the East Coast, we've got 18 in St. John's, 14 and rain in Halifax. To northern Quebec and Nukshawak is rain and 1, same with Kuujjuaq. 4 in Chibougamau, St. Jovie, 9 and sunny. Quebec City, 10 and sunny. Peterborough's at 11 and sunshine. Ottawa is 9 and sunny. Sault Ste. Marie, 9 and cloudy. Rain and 3 in Sioux Lookout. Kapuskasing, mix of sun and cloud and 5. Elliott Lakes, rain and 10. Thompson is 3 and sunny, -1 and sunny, and Churchill. God's Lake is 5 with a mix of sun and cloud. 3s for Gimli and Winnipeg, and rain, a little bit of sunshine in Brandon and 4 degrees. 3 and rain in Regina and Yorkton, 8 and sunny in Saskatoon. Uranium City is rain and -2. Same with Stony Rapids, rainy but -3, 6, and sunny in Meadow Lake. Welcome back. One project from the Gord Downie and Cheney Wenjack Fund is the Legacy Space. It's a designated room, a place to ask questions and learn about history and reconciliation. Halifax is the first city in Canada to open a legacy room in City Hall. Over a year ago, Chief Morley Gugu came up with an idea to have rooms throughout cities to raise awareness about residential schools and Indigenous culture. It was inspired by Gord Downie and Cheney Wenjack's story. Today, there are over 25 legacy spaces across Canada, located in universities, libraries, restaurants, and now a city hall. Gugu says knowledge will help bring us together.
Keep talking, keep asking, and it may be Cree in somewhere else. Dene, they ask you to relate to them, you know? Mi'kmaq in this territory. And it's so important for that people just are comfortable to ask questions.
As this issue, while it is a logical progression of steps that cities and other orders of government are taking to improve the relationship with First Nations people across the country.
Recorded over 100 years ago, can be now heard by everyone. Polaris Prize winning musician Jeremy Dutcher from the Tabik First Nation in New Brunswick has brought his ancestors' voices back to life on his debut album, and people are starting to listen. Angel Moore explains.
Jeremy Dutcher's debut album is a medley of his operatic voice and the original recordings of his ancestors. The album has won the Polaris Prize.
I got to meet Buffy St. Marie. Oh my God, she just tweeted about me today. She was like, "Go listen to this album," and I was like, "It's so beautiful." Just because she's somebody that I've really idolized.
Dutcher says the songs were put away as artifacts, and it was time they got back to the people.
You know, these songs, they're embedded, you know, in our forests and in our rocks, you know, and they want to be heard again.
The album is recorded entirely in the Wolastoqey language, and it is named after his community.
It's Wolastoqey. So the songs, so it's flipped around, but it's the songs of the people of the beautiful river.
There's such a diverse collection of knowledge in this room.
Dutcher gave a talk at Cape Breton University about his ancestors' knowledge and traditions.
The kind of conversations that we're having in this country right now around, you know, cultural revitalization, linguistic resurgence, all of these things, they're global.
Later that evening, the delegates attended a performance. Idoya Arana Babede says she has not seen anything this original in Canada.
He brought the language alive in such a contemporary and yet such a respectful, traditional way. I never seen anything as magnificent.
Iñaki Ekdebera says Dutcher is an inspiration.
Who else is following him? We need more and more Jeremys in the community.
Dutcher pushes the boundaries with his music and his identity.
It's about prodding and saying, Two-Spirit people have always been here, we're still here, and we're still having those big conversations.
Next year, he's going across Canada to play with symphonies and hopes the beauty of his music will be transformative.
You think about who goes to the symphony, who goes to the opera. These are the people, these are the decision makers. They are the people with means, yeah?
He says we need to be aware of how we treat each other and learn from the past. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Sydney.
To Vancouver now, a fashion show featuring the latest collection from designer Chloe Angus. APTN's Tina House explains part of the proceeds from the event will go to help a good cause.
With last-minute adjustments to her models, Chloe Angus is getting ready to showcase her latest spirit collection. Opening the festivities was Spock with Slalom Eagle dancers from the Squamish Nation.
It has magic to it. One of my best collections. I become more myself every year with every collection. It feels wonderful to be here with everyone and to have the artists around me like this. The collaboration is truly united tonight. I'm so proud.
And one of the artists' work that's featured on her clothes is Clarence Mills from Haida Gwaii.
After years and years of combination of designs and fashion, it looks like it's really working out. And Chloe has always been a good champion of Haida art, and I'd like to stand beside her all the time.
Also in the crowd catching the show was actress Rena Owen, the star of Once Were Warriors.
It was a great night. And you know, what I loved about her show was the diversity and the inclusiveness of models of all age groups, shapes and sizes. So very reflective of our communities.
Models Maddie McCallum and Paul Grenier say it's an amazing feeling to be on the runway.
Exciting, terrifying, but also empowering at the same time.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get there, you're scared, but you're like, no, I got this.
Yeah. And you don't even notice your surroundings. It's like you're just walking on air until somebody says something like, woo! Or
yeah.
For the Chloe Angus label, it's everything from comfortable bamboo designs to high-end fashion, such as this handmade Swarovski crystal embroidered corset. Guests at the show were also able to buy her designs, with partial proceeds going to a very good cause.
The Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Center Society here in Vancouver, it's just an incredible group of people and creates a really awesome community for anybody needing help moving into Vancouver or needing community to connect with, and we like to support them.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
That is some incredible apparel. Well, it was a long night for some Iqaluit residents. A windstorm had gusts as high as 127 kilometers an hour hit the capital in Nunavut. Our Kent Driscoll shows us the aftermath.
Schools and offices are still closed as Iqaluit cleans up after a windstorm literally tore the city up. Just how bad was it? This was the scene in downtown Iqaluit the next morning. Roads blocked off to allow cleanup to begin. Downtown was one of the worst hit parts of the city. The damage varied depending on which neighborhood you live in. Here in the Plateau, not too bad. Mostly just signs sheared off from waving in the wind. A few busted sheds and streetlights to fix, but Plateau dwellers got off easy. At the airport, much the same. Some flights were delayed, but that had more to do with the windstorm traveling to other Baffin Island communities. This is on the road to nowhere. This neighborhood did not get off so easy. You see that half-attached roofing? The wind blew some across the street, right into where Ian Kenayuk was relaxing.
The moment I heard that crash, I immediately, instinctively got out of the room yelling because I was completely scared, and God knows what would have happened if I didn't do anything, or if I was like literally a foot back, because there's literally, I see a piece of glass right there on my laundry, and if that hit me, God only knows what happened if that thing hit me.
Luckily, Ian wasn't hurt. Luckily for us, he was recording on his phone when the wind blew in. Watch for yourself. His power was out. That's why it's dark.
Oh, God! Holy me! Holy me! I'm okay.
This is one of the hardest hit areas. We call it Legoland. You can see why. Look at all that colorful roofing. The colors that give Legoland its name became weapons last night. Roofing was sheared off. Now there's a ton of cleanup to do. No serious injuries have been reported. It could have been much worse. It could have happened in the winter with snow. Cleanup is underway and Iqaluit will rebound. After all, you can't live in Nunavut and be scared of a little weather. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Well, Canadian travelers will need to dig a little deeper into their wallets starting today. Higher baggage fees come into effect for Air Canada and WestJet. One piece of checked luggage is going up $5 to $30 one way, while a second bag will now cost $50. The new fees apply to passengers buying tickets in the lowest fare categories. The increase was announced by Canada's two largest airlines in August. It's the first time in 4 years that these prices have gone up. The airlines blame higher operating costs and rising fuel prices. We need to take another break, but there's still more news to come, and here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast. To northern Alberta, we have sunshine and 8 in Grand Prairie, 2 and some snow in Fort McMurray, 10 and sunny in Edmonton, 9 for Lethbridge and Calgary and Red Deer, 15 for Campbell River and Vancouver and Victoria, lots of sunshine down there. Bella Coola is 15 and mix of sun and cloud, 7 and rain in Dease Lake, 2 and rain in Fort Nelson, Dawson City 5 and rain, Whitehorse 8 and rain, sunny in Norman Wells and 1 degree. Wauhee is 0 and some sunshine. Tuck is in at -2 and lots of sun there. Sax Harbor -5. Politick -6. Cambridge Bay -7 and sunny. Baker Lake -5 and sunshine. Repulse Bay rain and -5. Igloolik -5 and sunshine. Pangertown -3 and sunshine. Nunavut or Iqaluit, sorry, -1 and sunny. We've all seen those sometimes annoying car ads on social media. So many seem to target Indigenous people. And one Winnipeg family had trouble getting a mortgage, and they were told that financing a car could help. But the deal that they ended up with was not as expected. Reporter John Murray joined me earlier today to explain. So what led you to this story? I'm very curious.
Well, you know what? It came from a viewer. It was a tip. And, you know, I can't thank our viewers enough for these. You know, they start so many of our stories.
That's true.
Yep. And then on top of that, there was all these ads on Facebook. I'm sure you've even seen them too.
They've popped up, yeah, sponsored ads on the Facebook page for buying a car. It's financing.
That's right, yeah.
Things.
And one of the features of Facebook advertising is you can target ads to people, not by race, but clearly they're targeting well enough to reach Indigenous people.
Yeah.
And also they use telemarketing, and that was how the Danos got a phone call.
So, and who are the Danos?
The Danos are a First Nation family here in Winnipeg, and they wanted to buy a dream home. And what happened is they were told that they didn't have very good credit. So what happened is a car salesman called them with a potential solution to consolidate. But everything went wrong from there.
So, okay, well, I don't want you to give away too much of this show because we want to watch it and find out. But so a car company is targeting Indigenous people to say, we can help you with your finances through buying a car. Is that kind of the gist of it?
That's basically the gist of it, yes. They were saying that, yes, a consolidation loan would help them and would make the bank think that they had lower payments and would be able to afford this house mortgage.
And we'll have to watch the show to find out if
Absolutely.
if that went according to plan. Okay, but tell me, you went undercover for this too, which I, as a former member of Investigates, I love this type of reporting, going undercover. So tell us a little bit about.
Well, I had to wear a hidden camera.
Yeah.
And I went into the Birchwood dealership and also another dealership wearing a hidden camera, and you know that's incredible in itself. You know, I felt so self-conscious of it, but it worked.
Yeah.
I got some information that we really needed, and we couldn't have got that without going in without a hidden camera.
I love it. Okay, well, that's tonight right after APTN National News. Congratulations, it's your 10th season for APTN Investigates. I'm happy to be here at APTN National News, but my heart is still with, of course, APTN Investigates. I miss you guys.
All right, well, thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, John. Well, that's your APTN National News for tonight. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for your News Weekend edition. But stay tuned now for APTN Investigates new season and John Murray's story, Sales Pitch. Have a great night.